speaking of history, going back, I think it's important for us to have a conversation about some of the things that we feel, not even feel, but it's actual fact. There are things that were erased in our history books. There were things that, the history does not look the way that things happen. Things aren't as they seem. And I think that's the best way to kind of put it, right? For some sad reason, there were, certain parts and certain chapters in our history books that didn't make it because I don't think it would serve people's narratives. And I also feel that if people really knew the power that we have, it would be very, very difficult to control or dominate. I hope you're catching my drift. Make sure that the conversation is going on social media at Channel Africa One. And today in particular, we are kind of redefining how we remember South Africa's past and envision its future. The Voices of 1956 is not just a stage production, it's a movement of remembrance, resistance, and renewal. Conceived and directed by dancer and choreographer Lusanda Dayimani, this groundbreaking dance theatre production brings to life the untold stories of queer women who stood at the forefront of the 1956 Women's March and yet were erased from our collective memory. Supported by Muholi Arts Institute under the guidance of acclaimed visual activist Professor Zanele Muholi, Voices of 1956 blends raw movement, ancestral connection, and the power of storytelling to honor forgotten heroines while confronting ongoing struggles for equality and visibility in the queer community. We are super honored and joined by Lusanda Dayimani, the visionary director and creative force behind this deeply evocative work. Lusanda, good morning to you and you only at this point.
Good morning. What an introduction. How are you?
I am feeling empowered. I'm proud that it is women, Black women, who are taking care of our futures and taking care of our narratives. So I'm great. How are you?
I'm good. I'm good.
So let's
All I can
talk.
say.
Yeah, let's talk about this because to be honest, when I read it, I was like, okay, Voices of 1956, of course. And then I read more and it says queer women who were erased. Do you know some of these women? Are they currently alive? Do you know queer women who were erased from our history books?
Oh, well, when I read, there was nothing that was said about queer women who marched in the 20,000 women in 1956. But if you go on with the stories in the internet, it says they were there and they were just not allowed to be themselves around that time because obviously of the era that they were in. We then thought, what were they saying? What were they trying to fight for? Because they were underground rooms that they sat in and became themselves for minutes and then back to reality. So how was it for them to not being able to be visible at the time? So yes, there were voices that were silenced in that struggle of Dompas.
I find the human character very interesting now because you're telling me that, okay, number one, we were already fighting apartheid, which was the segregation of race. Okay, cool. Then society standards, we were fighting gender equality. So, this is us being equal to men. To this day, we are still fighting that, right? And then even amongst the races, some races, even in segregation, were more superior than others through the pencil test that they did with our hair, right? And then now we're taking it a step further, even with sexual orientation, there was still segregation. Why do we find ourselves so easily segregated?
I think it's a system as well. It's a system. I feel we were conditioned to behave certain way in certain situations because to this day we get to we're still fighting race, we're still fighting gender equality, we're still fighting labels in 2025. After I don't know how many years of women and even just people voicing out and educating and trying to teach. There's seminars, there's clinics, there's everywhere, there's platforms to learn, but people are just, and the system is just not allowing change fully.
And how do we depict that though in a play, especially a dance led play? Because we're using a lot of movement to tell the stories that were not told, right? The stories that were erased. How does now art be the communicator of these stories? How do we continue telling these stories through our art?
This is a very tricky one. And I think as a dancer is just a tool for me to translate the inner thoughts, the inner feelings. So we do use dance to translate. Some movements are very clear, some movements are abstract, but there's text, there's music, there's thinking, there's writing, there's lighting that puts a flavor in the story. There's research, there's yeah, there's platforms, but it dance is just, I think it's just a tool to extend the feeling, to extend the thought to the outside world.
And do you think through this we will actually get some women who will come forward and actually declare that they were one of the queer women who stood in that march? Because I don't think I'd want us to, kind of have this art be displayed, but, the outcome is just that we educate. I would love a reveal like that. Do you think that that's a possibility with this?
I hope so.
Yeah.
I really hope so. And I mean, a lot of times when we do ask our parents some questions, and then you find they partly they were part of the other matches, they were part of the other conversation, they were part of the other planning. So there are still women out there who relate to things that we are talking about now. So I'm hoping they would come forward and say I was one of. That would be great for me.
And also, what was the hardest part about putting this together? I can imagine that this must resonate in some way or form in your life, whether it be your friends, cousins, or family members who are experiencing this, where they themselves, even to this day, are afraid of coming out. What was the toughest part about putting it together?
I'm sorry, can you say that again?
Yes, my
Something is
question.
happening.
It's all right. My question is, what was the toughest part about putting the play together? Because a story like this, I feel, would resonate with either yourself or people around you, women around you who are also probably still not comfortable enough to come out.
Yes. Um, there was no struggle putting it together. I think there was a struggle in getting into the main message because we're obviously different bodies. We obviously have different experiences. But I stuck by because Professor Zanele Mohori conceptualized this and they did us. So it's our job to put it together and really try to get all the pictures and all the images and all some of the voices to be heard, at least in that match. So it was not really difficult. And I think the one part that was difficult is getting the message across and not being insensitive about it and not being ignorant about it, because there are parts where you find yourself that you're just expressing just yourself. You have, because that's the creation process, you find that you're talking about yourself and then you have to go back to the drawing board and see if you're not losing the story and all that. And I think also it was just getting a space. It was getting everything that makes sense, that puts it together, like music, like text, like the names, like the board. Just putting it in different bodies was not a roller coaster, but it was not easy.
And you've mentioned Professor Zanele a number of times in our conversation. What is the influence on all of this?
Um, they really have, they conceptualized the story first, and they've given us a chance to grow it and put it out there, because at first it was just an idea and then they believed in it, and yeah, believed in it and gave us a chance to then show it to the world and say the things that we want to say about ourselves as young artists in the township
I feel
where
like
we're coming from.
Yeah, I feel like that's a very, very important role to play there. You know, the fact that the story also comes from there, you guys also willingly
Yes,
serving the story
very
through your
big.
talents. So tell us
Yes.
some details about it. Where can we find it? When can we find it? Give us the deets.
It's gonna be in Kailicha, in a place called Azande Theatre Village. Theatre Village. It's a shack theatre in Makaza. It's gonna be on the 7th, from the 7th of November to the 9th of November, which is the coming weekend. The show is 50 rand. I'm allowed to say that.
Yes.
It's 50 rand, and Friday it starts at 6, and Saturday it's at 5, and Sunday it's at 3 p.m.
That is absolutely exciting. Do you guys have social media accounts that we can follow so we can follow you around in your venture to tell our African and untold stories?
Yes, you can follow Azande Theatre Village on both Facebook and Instagram, and also myself personally, Lusanda Dayimani.
Amazing stuff. Lusanda, thank you so much for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you, rock that stage and the team rock that stage. So, yeah, all the best.
Thank you.
Fantastic. That was Lusanda Dayimani, who is the visionary director and creative force behind the Voices of 1956. It is 7:38 Central African time right here on the Oasis. Let's enjoy some music.
9 to 12 midday.